Hello everyone, welcome to a new edition of the Juggling Balls YouTube channel. Obviously you're back with me again, Stu. And today's video we're going to be having a little bit of a look through and discussion about Arsenal Football Club. The once mighty football club have now somewhat having a bit of a fall from grace, you would say, now lingering in the mid-table, not really competing for many top titles these days and struggling to really create that much joy around the club like it used to. I know they've won obviously a few FA Cups in the past few years, and they've got to finals in Europa League and things like that. But really, there hasn't been the success that Arsenal fans have been expecting. There's been no real top four for a while. There's been no real title race for a while. Nothing, pretty much non-existent in the Champions League. And it really has made things difficult for, you know, the fans to watch. It's not been good for them, and it has been a shame. And it's as I say, it's been a long time really since you could really consider Arsenal a title contender and someone that's really going to be fighting for those big competitions and bringing in players of a stature that you would expect of a club that's really been consistently prior to this bad spell they've been in for 20 years plus, a club that would really you would expect to be fighting for those top players. I mean, if you go back to the years of Thierry Henry and Patrick Vieira and Dennis Bergkamp and Robert Perez and Freddie Ljungberg and David Seaman and Jens Lehmann, the real pomp of Arsenal's time at the top of the English uh, league and their invincible season, obviously, was the pinnacle of Arsene Wenger's time there. And it just, at this moment in time, it's a real struggle for anyone to really think of how Arsenal are really going to climb back to the top, and how are they going to be competing again? Because at the moment, you've got the likes of Man City, who aren't going anywhere because they've got the money, they've got the manager, they've got the players in for the long term, and they've shown that even with key players going out, they can still compete. They've pretty much played this entire season without an established number nine or a top striker or even a decent enough level of striker, I would say, to really have considered that they would get the amount of success that they have. But Guardiola's came up with a way that's really topped everybody that has come into his path. So City aren't going anywhere. Liverpool, I would suspect, are going to have a bounce back next season. I think they might have a bit of a reshuffle, not a major reshuffle, just a bit of a freshen up of the squad after the 3 or 4 seasons of success that they've had. Man United, I mean, going to be back again. I highly suspect that it's going to be a continuation of where they were this season. I think they'll bring in a few more players, and Ollie will look to build it. Chelsea, again, I mean, the transformation they've had under Tuchel this second half to the season has been nothing short of remarkable. I've said it before in podcasts and videos that he has been a tremendously good move for Chelsea to get him in and to replace Lampard with him, because he's brought the best out of these players that at the start of the season people were looking at them going, they've spent 130 million on these two players of Havertz and Werner, but by the end of the season they are starting now to look like the players we would expect them to be. And I think Tuchel's been a big factor in that, a huge factor, probably the biggest factor in that. So those four clubs on their own are going to be keeping teams out. I think that those four teams will be having strong seasons next year, and those are the teams I would expect to be in the top four. If you look outside that usual top four, the biggest top four biggest teams at the moment, I think you've got obviously the likes of Leicester. They'll probably sign a couple more players and still be in and around that conversation of the top seven. I think like Spurs, obviously they've got quality, but big question marks over them as to whether Kane stays or not, and then what happens with Son as a result of that, and who can they bring in, and who their manager is going to be, obviously, because we haven't had any confirmation of that yet. Obviously, it's a summer of intrigue for everybody involved in this top 6, 7, or 8 picture. Are Everton going to kick on? Are Leeds going to kick on? Because they've they're in the argument for top 10 at the moment, and I think with another summer of expansion and building on the transfers they made last year, and building on the team that they've already got, the strong foundation they've already got in the Premier League. I think with the right signings, they'll be pushing for that top seven. So for Arsenal, it's kind of looking bleak right now because whilst at the start of it, Arteta won the FA Cup and it was bright horizons. They got Aubameyang back. It's kind of made it difficult for people to see exactly how Arsenal are going to progress that, and a lot of questions are coming out of them being knocked out by Villarreal in the Europa League. Is Arteta actually going to stay in his job? And I think the answer is, at the moment, from the sounds of the board and from people behind the scenes at Arsenal, and from what's been reported in obviously everyday sports news, is that Arteta is going to get a stay of execution and he's going to get a chance to build in the summer. And I don't envy that man for having to have to do that, because the rebuild that Arteta is going to have to put in place is a big project. It's not going to be a one transfer window fix. This is like this summer, January transfer window, or next summer. If he's lucky, if he gets the right players in, then it could quickly come together for Arsenal. And in a couple of seasons' time, they could be fighting for those top four places again and the bigger titles. But for me, Arteta's got to bring in players now that suit his style, that suit how he plays. I think some of the decisions at the start of the season, like putting Aubameyang on the left, were questionable. Aubameyang's your best finisher, he's your best scorer. Yes, Lacazette plays in the middle, but at that time, I would have said Lacazette is a second fiddle to Aubameyang, and Aubameyang should be in the middle. He should be your main striker. One thing I will say about Arsenal is that some of the youth he's got is the way to build around. I think the likes of, Smith Rowe, Saka, people like that. I mean, he's also got big decisions to make about players that are out on loan. I mean, Joe Willock at Newcastle, he's been an absolute sensation for them since he's joined. Scoring crucial goals for them in their running of trying to avoid relegation. The last-minute equaliser against Liverpool being the main one that comes to mind. I know he scored a lot more goals than that, and more important goals probably than that. But it's just shown that out of the spotlight, he's been absolutely brilliant. And with a bit of development, he could probably do that for Arteta as well. But you've got Smith Rowe, you've got Saka, you've got Willock, you've got. I mean, they've got a decent young crop coming through that Arteta can really utilise and hopefully use to strengthen the squad to the point and build around to the point where it keeps him in a job, and B, it sees some success in the long term for Arsenal, because right now that's what the build's got to be. As a United fan, when Ollie came in, it was all about the long term, and that's where I feel Arsenal are now at the moment, is that they are looking for the long term. It isn't a case of just buying in 5 or 6 players to give you the short term gain. That's not going to work this time. And plus, those players that you're going to be looking for are probably not going to be interested in coming to Arsenal. Let's be honest, simply because of the fact that there's no European football. And yes, you can get away with the fact of we're in the Europa League. If we're in the Europa League, we're in the Champions League. But realistically, if those 3 or 4 players come in, are they going to make up for the lack of depth that Arsenal have right now? And I think the answer is no. It's substantially no. It's going to be a long rebuild. That doesn't mean it can't be done. I think if Arteta gets the right pieces in over the summer, he can start to look at those top 7 places again. But with the clubs in and around that top 7, more than likely going to strengthen, I find it very difficult to believe that Arsenal are going to be in that conversation again unless they get some substantial backing from the ownership. Now, that doesn't mean you can't get players in that are of a certain quality who will come to Arsenal, because again, Arsenal is a name. It's still a name to those younger players, those players between 20 to 25 who are still probably developing and probably not at their best yet, which is probably what Arsenal are going to be looking at. they still know Arsenal as a big club. They grew up in the times when Arsenal were competing in Champions League places and titles and winning cups and left, right, and centre during that year in, year out. And I think there will be still a name attachment to some players for Arsenal, and that's what they'll probably. That's the way I would probably market it to the players or sell it to the players. As in, this is the long-term rebuild. This is where we're going to be in end of season 1, season 2, season 3, and go from there. Now, the question is whether or not the ownership is going to come in and give them the backing. And the simple answer at this moment is we don't know. They're saying that they're going to support Arteta, but the question is how much are they willing to support Arteta? Because Arteta is going to need at least 100 million in this summer, just this summer alone, to try and get, you know, the decent amount, 3 or 4 players in that of a decent standard. Because who knows? And again, the question is no one knows what the summer transfer values are going to be like because of the whole pandemic this past year, and we don't know what the and how the Euros will affect that. If Arsenal have any sense, or any club has any sense, they'll be getting their summer transfer dealings done this summer in particular, done early and before the Euros even is mentioned by the Champions League final being finished. And if you leave it till after the Euros, players prices will jump up by 10, 20, 30 million based on how they do there, even if it's just a one-off tournament. It holds a lot of stock. It's the same with the World Cup. The World Cup, you see players from like Brazil and Argentina who are probably just outside the 11 if they have a decent tournament and they come into the first team. Younger players will jump up 30, 40 million. It's not going to be an easy transfer window for anybody to buy players because everyone's probably going to be going for the same players, and Arsenal will be at the back of the pack unless they're smart about it and go for players that can provide something. It's these players clearly that are probably in the Premier League now, but are clearly a step above the rest of the squad. Some players who bring something to the squad every week are a solid 6 or 7s. That's what Arsenal needs more of. And the other unfortunate thing for Arsenal is you've got players like, players who are out of contract, or they have a few players like David Luiz who's coming towards the end of his contract or who doesn't have a large resale value. You can't generate money from these players that Arsenal really have. You're lucky if you're going to get 30, 40 million for them in the transfer window because at the moment, other than maybe I would say Aubameyang and probably Lacazette, and obviously the younger players are going to go for quite a bit because they're just on the potential side of things. But outside of those couple of players, who's really coming in to Arsenal with a big lump sum? Aubameyang signed a new contract, so he's probably got a bit of value to him. You could probably get him for 30 million, 40 million maybe if you're lucky, because of his age, and two, the factor of our club's going to be willing to put that much more money into a player who is possibly going to start hitting the decline in the next couple of years. So there isn't much resale value. Now that doesn't mean obviously if you get these players off the books, obviously you can offer bigger contracts, so that's a way around it. But it still needs the owner to cough up the funds, to get them to the place where they want to be. And I think that's what it's going to take. It's going to take some investment. It's going to take probably a bit more pain for Arsenal fans, unfortunately for them, to get into the spots where they want to be and competing with the teams that they want to compete with. Because, Arsenal these past 20 years have been probably the third biggest club in England in terms of success. The players they've had, the being in the Champions League. I mean, this is the first time we're looking at the first time in 25 years here that Arsenal haven't been in Europe. That's 25 years. Even Man United, who've won all the Premier League titles under Fergie, and since Fergie's left, can't even say they've been in Europe every year. So 25 years is not to be scoffed at, really. So, it's a big thing for Arsenal not to be in any sort of European competition. And, I just think that if depending on how the summer goes, they could be in well for some more pain. And it's a shame to see a big club like that go the way it has. But if the owners don't put in the investment and they don't get some money in for players and they don't freshen the squad up every now and then, this is what's going to happen. Um, that's not to say Arteta is not the right guy. I think under the right system and with the right players, he can make Arsenal a great team again. But it's going to take time. It took time with Ollie. It took time with Klopp. It took time with Guardiola. Guardiola didn't have the success he's had with City straight away. He finished fourth in his first season. It's going to take time for Arsenal to get to that position. The unfortunate thing for Arsenal is for the clubs that I've just mentioned of Guardiola, Klopp, and Ollie. Their clubs were sort of a quarter to halfway there in that build. So, or had good groundwork to work with and a good base to work with to get them up that spot. Arteta probably has the worst starting base of those managers. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how it goes. Do I think they can do it? I'm struggling to think they will, but who knows? The right two or three players can change everything. I mean, I've watched Bruno basically change us from being Europa League contenders to, I mean, Europa League contenders in the Premier League, getting into those spots. I don't mean for the title, because obviously we've been in there the past couple of years. Um, but I've seen us change from, questioned all the time as to whether or not we'd get anywhere near close Champions League to solidly in the top four. And I think with the summer investment that we're going to have, we could be looking at a potential title challenge next year, depending on how things fall. I think if I was to look at the teams now and how the land lays, I think it's going to be between Chelsea and Man City, and then us and Liverpool will probably take third and fourth and see how close we are. But we've made progress from last year, and that's the main thing. And I think if you're an Arsenal fan, whilst next year it'd be great if you were making cup runs and doing this, that, and the other, I think the main focus should be the league and progressing back to up to those top six spots again. Because make no mistake, it's going to be really difficult, especially if they have the majority of the squad they've got now. They need to get rid of a lot of the deadwood, the aging squad, get rid of some of the players that haven't worked out, and replace them with some fresh blood, and go from there. So yeah, that's my thoughts on Arsenal. Let me know what you think in the comments. Let me know who you think they could do with signing. Obviously, they're not going to be getting Mbappe or anyone like that, unless something miraculous happens and Kroenke goes mad and spends hundreds and hundreds of millions. But yeah, let me know where you think Arsenal will finish next season. Give us a like, share, and subscribe, and all that good stuff. And I will catch you on the next one, guys. Thanks very much. Bye.